All right, so we're diving into atomic habits today. It's all about how tiny changes can lead to some really big results.
Yeah, a lot of people think self-improvement's got to be these, huge overnight transformations.
Right, like flipping a switch or something.
Exactly. But atomic habits kind of shows us a different way to think about it.
Yeah, it's all about those small steps.
Yeah.
Being consistent.
Yeah.
Like that saying, little hinges swing big doors.
Totally. And James Clear, the author, he uses this great analogy with an airplane. Like, imagine a pilot. They just slightly adjust their course, just a tiny degree. It might not seem like a big deal at first.
Yeah, I can see that. Just a little tweak.
But think about it. Over a long flight, that small change, it could land you in a totally different country.
Whoa, that's a really good point. So, even though the adjustments are small, they can really add up over time.
Exactly. It's the power of compounding. And get this, Clear even puts a number on it. He says if you just improve by 1% every day, you'll be almost 37 times better by the end of the year.
Okay, 37 times better. I'm definitely listening now. But how do we actually do that? Where do we even start with making those tiny improvements?
Well, Clear gives us this framework. He calls it the habit loop.
Okay, I remember when I first read about this, I was a little confused, but then it clicked when he gave that example with the cookies.
Yeah, that's a good one. So think about it. You walk into a room and there's this plate of freshly baked cookies just sitting there, tempting you. That's the cue.
Okay, the cue, the trigger. Got it.
Right, and suddenly you get this craving. You just have to have a cookie.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling.
So you grab a cookie and take a bite, right? That's your response.
It's the action, the doing part.
Yep. And then that delicious sugary reward hits. And over time, that whole cycle becomes so automatic, so ingrained, that just seeing a cookie can trigger the whole thing.
It's like our brains are wired for those rewards, so we got to figure out how to use that to our advantage.
Right. Exactly. Clear lays it out for us. He talks about making the cue obvious, the craving attractive, the response easy, and the reward satisfying.
Okay, so let's say someone wants to, start writing every day, like a journaling habit.
Perfect example. So to make the cue obvious, you could leave your notebook and your favorite pen, right on your desk, staring you in the face.
Make it impossible to ignore.
Exactly. And then to make that craving attractive, maybe light a scented candle or put on some inspiring music, create a whole little ritual you enjoy.
So you're looking forward to it.
Right. And to make the response easy, start small. Just commit to writing, 1 paragraph a day. Totally doable.
Yeah, that takes the pressure off. And what about that reward? Got to make it satisfying.
Totally. Maybe treat yourself to a cup of your favorite tea after you finish writing. Or track your progress in a journal so you can see how much you've accomplished. Those little wins can be super motivating.
So instead of just relying on willpower, which can be tough, we're setting ourselves up for success by changing our routines and our environments.
Yeah, exactly. And Clear doesn't just talk theory. He actually shares a bunch of really cool success stories in the book.
I was reading about the guy who lost over 100 pounds by committing to never skipping a workout, even if it was just for 5 minutes. Blew me away.
That one's awesome, right? It shows you it's not always about these huge changes. It's about being consistent, even when you don't feel like it.
Showing up for yourself, even when it's just for 5 minutes.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that story is that the guy, he didn't just focus on working out, He actually shifted his whole mindset. He embraced the identity of someone who prioritizes fitness.
Like he was building that identity step by step.
Exactly. It's like he was casting votes for his future self with every step he took, every rep he completed. And as those votes added up, the evidence of his new identity became undeniable.
Powerful stuff. It's not just individual transformations, right?
Yeah.
I know Clear talks about the British cycling team, too, how they use this marginal gains philosophy to win Olympic gold.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. So instead of making these massive changes, they focused on tiny improvements in every single aspect of their training and performance. Everything from the aerodynamics of their bikes to the athletes' sleep schedules, even down to the type of massage gel they use.
Seriously, they looked at every little detail.
Oh, yeah. They were obsessed with finding those 1% improvements, those marginal gains, that could give them an edge.
I bet that was a ton of work. But did it actually pay off?
It totally did. I mean, by themselves, those changes might have seemed insignificant, but together, it was like a snowball effect. They reached a level of success they'd never seen before.
Makes sense. It's like take care of the pennies and the pounds will take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Or in this case, take care of the marginal gains and the gold medals will follow. But let's be real, even with the best intentions, we all trip up sometimes. Life gets in the way, motivation dips, and we miss a workout or eat that extra cookie. What do we do when those setbacks happen?
Well, Clear says slip-ups, they're just a normal part of the process. He even says, like, missing once is an accident. Missing twice, that's the start of a new habit. So the important thing is to not let those little missteps totally derail you.
So it's not about being perfect all the time. That's actually kind of a relief to hear. It's more about realizing that we're human, we're going to mess up sometimes, and the best thing to do is just get back on track as soon as we can.
Exactly. And one thing that can really help with that is something called habit stacking.
Habit stacking.
Yeah, it's basically taking advantage of the routines you already have to make new habits easier to stick.
Like attaching a new behavior to something you're already doing automatically.
Yeah.
You know what? I actually do this already without even realizing it had a name. I used to always forget to take my vitamins.
Oh, I feel that.
Yeah, and then I started keeping them right next to my coffee maker. So now, while my coffee's brewing, I just pop those vitamins. No willpower needed.
That's a perfect example. You're basically using the existing habit of making coffee to make taking your vitamins more automatic.
It's like building a chain reaction of good behaviors.
Exactly. And it makes total sense. It's way easier to add a new habit to an existing routine than to try to find a whole new time slot for it in your day.
We're kidding. It's like my schedule's already packed.
And Claire also talks about how we can take this even further by actually shaping our environment to support our habits.
So instead of relying only on willpower, we can become architects of our own success by making our surroundings work for us, not against us. Tell me more about how this environment design stuff actually works.
Okay, so think about it this way. If you're trying to eat healthier, having a bowl of fruit on the counter, out in the open, makes that healthy choice way more obvious and tempting than digging through the pantry for a bag of chips.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind, right?
Exactly. Or if you're trying to cut back on screen time before bed, just leave your phone in another room to get it out of sight. Then you won't be as tempted to scroll endlessly.
It's like we're giving ourselves these little nudges in the right direction.
Yep. You're making the good habit the easy option. It's like how grocery stores put candy bars right at the checkout line to tempt you. Except, in this case, you're in control. You're setting up the store.
Love that. Okay, but it's not just about our physical environment, right? There's social environment, too, like who we surround ourselves with.
Absolutely. Having people around you who share your values and support your goals, huge difference maker.
That's so true. I remember when I was training for a marathon a while back, joining a running group. Game changer. Having that shared commitment and accountability made it so much easier to stay motivated.
It's like you're all casting votes for each other's success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of casting votes, I know one of the big things in Atomic Habits is that shift from outcome-based goals to identity-based habits.
Oh, that's a good one.
What's the difference?
So instead of focusing on a specific result you want to achieve, losing 20 pounds or writing a book, you focus on becoming the type of person who has the qualities and habits that would get you that outcome.
So it's like instead of saying, I want to write a book, you say, I am a writer. Seems like a subtle shift, but I can see how that could make a difference.
It totally can, because when you approach it from an identity perspective, everything you do reinforces that identity.
Give me an example.
Sure. So every time you sit down to write, you're casting a vote for your identity as a writer. Every healthy choice you make reinforces your identity as someone who prioritizes their well-being.
It's like building up this bank of evidence to support the person you want to become.
Exactly. And the more evidence you collect, the stronger that identity becomes.
Gotcha. But, even when we're super clear about our identity, sometimes those changes just feel so slow.
I know what you mean. That's where consistency comes in. It makes it really clear that even when you don't see progress right away, you got to trust the process. He has this great analogy. It's like an ice cube melting.
Okay, I'm picturing an ice cube. How does that relate to habits?
So imagine an ice cube just sitting there. As the temperature rises, it might look like nothing's happening. Not for a while, at least.
Okay, I'm with you.
But then suddenly the ice cube hits this tipping point, right? And it just melts all at once.
Oh, I get it. It's like we take all these small, consistent actions, and they might not feel like they're doing much at first, but underneath, they're slowly chipping away at those old habits and setting us up for a breakthrough.
Exactly. And a lot of times, those breakthroughs happen when we least expect them. But we have to trust that even when we don't see results immediately, those consistent efforts are building something. They're laying the groundwork for real change.
It's like planting a seed. Got to give it time to sprout.
Exactly. And one of the most important things we can do to support that growth is to have a system in place, a system that makes those good habits easier to maintain. Clear says it really well. He says, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems.
So it's not enough to just set goals. We actually have to build systems that help us reach those goals. What does a good system look like when we're talking about habits?
Yeah, it seems like systems, they're really the key here. But how do we actually build them? That part can feel kind of overwhelming.
It definitely can be, yeah. But luckily, Clear, he actually gives us a framework for designing systems that actually, work. He says to start by making your desired habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying.
Oh, right. Just like we talked about before with the habit loop.
Exactly. Those same principles apply to building good systems.
Okay, so how does that work in real life? Can you give us an example?
Sure. Let's say you want to start exercising more. Make it a regular thing. To make it obvious, schedule your workouts, put them right in your calendar, and lay out your workout clothes the night before.
So you're like removing any obstacles, making it super easy to just get started.
Right. And to make those workouts attractive, maybe you join a fun fitness class or listen to your favorite podcasts while you exercise. Oh, that's a good one. Got to make it enjoyable. And what about making it easy?
Start small. Commit to just 15 minutes a day. Or pick a gym that's like right on your way home from work, so it's convenient.
So you're not having to go out of your way.
Exactly. And for that satisfying reward, you could track your progress, maybe use a fitness app, or give yourself a little treat after each workout, like a healthy smoothie or something.
So you're kind of hacking your own motivation by making the whole experience more enjoyable.
Exactly. And the best part is, when you have a system that really supports your habit, you're basically automating your success, You're setting up an environment where the good habit is just the easiest option. You're not relying solely on willpower or motivation. It's the system that's guiding you toward your goal.
I love that. Sounds like a recipe for success. But we all know life happens. Even with the best systems, sometimes we get off track. How do we handle those setbacks?
Well, Clear's got us covered there, too. He talks about the importance of getting back on track quickly. He says, missing once, that's an accident. Missing twice, that's the start of a new habit. So we got to catch those slip-ups early.
So don't beat yourself up if you miss once. Just get right back to it.
Exactly. It's not about being perfect. It's about having a plan for when those inevitable setbacks happen. And one of the best things you can do is figure out what your triggers are. Those situations or emotions that make you more likely to slip up.
Right. So if you know stress eating is a trigger for you, have a plan to deal with that stress in a healthier way.
Exactly. It's like having a toolkit of strategies to help you stay on course. And another thing that can help is having a good support system. Clear talks about accountability partners, having someone to share your goals with, to celebrate your wins, and to encourage you when you're struggling.
Yeah, sometimes we all need someone to cheer us on.
Absolutely. And Clear also talks about reflecting on your progress, the good and the bad. He suggests keeping a journal to keep track of your habits. That way, you can start to see patterns and figure out what's working for you and what isn't.
A journal, like a habit tracker, seems like a good way to be more mindful.
Totally. And through that reflection and adjustment, you can keep growing. Because habit formation isn't a finish line, it's a journey, It's all about continuous improvement.
We're always learning and adapting, getting better at shaping our lives. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into atomic habits, what's the one thing you want listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing is this. Small changes, if you do them consistently, they can lead to really amazing results. Don't underestimate the power of those tiny actions you take every single day. They're the building blocks of the life you want to live.
That's so true. It reminds us that we all have the power to change, to shape our own futures. And Atomic Habits shows us how.
And it reminds us to be patient, to enjoy the journey, and to celebrate all those small wins along the way.
Because those small wins, they eventually add up to big changes. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Atomic Habits. We hope you've learned some valuable stuff and feel inspired to put these ideas into action.
Absolutely. And until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep building those atomic habits.